redneck teens with massive machines, everybody living beyond their means, brotherly love from the messed up genes, nobody wants to intervene. The billboard screams you're advertising.
Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Anthony James, Ajahn and Master Teacher of Ayurveda and Traditional Thai Yoga Therapy here at the NAIC SomaVeda College of Natural Medicine and the Thai Yoga Center. I'm also the Medical and Clinical Director of the Natural Wellness Solutions Clinic that we operate at our seminary here at the SomaVeda College of Natural Medicine. Today's discussion is titled Truth Bombs, Rant number 6. Who is tracing the contact tracers? Subtext, why I can't fly to Puerto Rico because of Sara. And I want to talk about this because I want to know more about Sara and why should we trust her. Well, hello and good day. I hope this video finds you doing well and finding your path to a better life. Keep this in mind. I'm all about health freedom. I believe there is no freedom without health freedom. I believe and teach in every class that there is no health freedom without freedom of choice and voluntary informed consent. What I'm going to talk about today violates all of what I just stated, and it's not just about impeding my progress to go teach and do missionary healing work on the island of Puerto Rico, because this is actually something that we will all have to be dealing with soon enough. So, and it brought up some issues that I haven't heard anybody else talk about, so that's what I'm here. Most of you know that mostly what I do is teach Indigenous and Traditional Natural Medicine. And I'm the Dean of a small seminary college of natural medicine and registered school of Ayurveda and Yoga Therapy. If you're not sure what these are, then for sure, go to our website at thaiyogacenter.com or somaveda.org to find out more. So as I said before, my topic today is who's tracking the COVID tracers, and or who is Sara and why should we obey and why should we trust her? Now, I just learned about Sara. Just learned. I mean, when I say I just learned about Sara, I just learned about Sara and the Sara app yesterday, and I was shocked and really actually had a hard time sleeping last night. And I had to stay up and do a little bit of investigation, a little bit of research. I'm sure some of you who are much better at the research game than I am will be able to chime in and correct me if I'm wrong or clarify exactly what's going on. And if I missed it, I'd love to hear about it. And you're certainly welcome to comment below after you hit the like and subscribe button. All right. So I have a SomaVeda, that's the style that I teach, Thai Yoga Therapy intro to healing ministry program scheduled for the end of September in Puerto Rico. I've been really looking forward to it. Puerto Rican people are just beautiful. Puerto Rico is just beautiful. And they have an innate, especially the indigenous Puerto Rican people, the Taino, the Jibaro Taino, nation of which I'm proud to be an honorary member of. But just ordinary Puerto Ricans in general have a higher than average interest in indigenous and traditional non-invasive natural medicine. So I love going there. I love and support the island, and I've been visiting and working and teaching for several years now, going on about 15 years for sure. And I love and support, you know, and I'm part of an international Christian medical mission working to establish clinics and schools in Puerto Rico. And we were doing just that, actually had a school that would have been a clinic that would have been open by September, which the project was shut down because of the Big C issue and the way the Puerto Rican government has responded to it. And I wanted to see what the current travel issues were for me to fly into PR and teach a week in class toward the end of September. Oh my, oh my. I was horrified and shocked to see the draconian and unconstitutional restrictions and rules now under enforcement. Now, let me see if I can give you a view of what those are. Here we got traveling to Puerto Rico. Don't forget your COVID-19 test. That's on Bloomberg. And let's scroll down so we can actually get into it. Okay. And I'm going to change my camera here just a sec so you can see me while I'm talking about this. But basically, what you can see there is travelers arriving in Puerto Rico will be required to show a negative COVID-19 test or submit to a 2-week quarantine as the bankrupt U.S. Commonwealth tries to kickstart its tourism economy without triggering a surge in corona cases. And then note to self, Puerto Rico's been bankrupt since Hurricane Maria and Hurricane Irma, and due to all of the malfeasance, fraud, outright theft, and corruption that diverted literally billions of dollars of relief funds, which could have been used to reconstruct the island and the industries, went to third-party contractors, private persons, and Lord knows where. I was horrified to see under this new directives, the restrictions and rules now under enforcement, all under the guise of supporting tourism and business in Puerto Rico, when in fact they make it virtually impossible to travel to Puerto Rico from the U.S. This is significant. There literally is close to 1 million people in the U.S. And or Puerto Rico that have relatives in U.S. and or Puerto Rico, or have business in the U.S. and or in Puerto Rico. And these rules have virtually shut all of that down. And I know from speaking to my students and friends in Puerto Rico that they are suffering under these rules. No kidding. When you think you're traveling, well, first of all, it makes it virtually impossible to actually travel to Puerto Rico from the U.S. You would think you're traveling to a distant country, not a U.S. territory. Here, let me show you the page I found with the current rules. And this is where my rabbit hole of Sara began. Now, also in the show notes that will be in the article that I post with this video on NatureCuresToday.com, I'm going to have all the links for all of these articles that I'm going to reference here. So under executive order, people flying into Luis Munez International, but actually if you look further, it's all the airports in Puerto Rico, will be required to show a negative, this has been updated more recently too, negative molecular or PCR test that has been taken in the past 72 hours. In addition, they will have to provide information about their travel history and itinerary, and those who don't have proof that they're COVID-free will be required to shelter in place for 14 days or until they are tested. All right, let me see what I think about that. Puerto Ricans will be required to show a negative COVID test or submit to a 2-week quarantine. All right, first of all, requiring a negative PCR test, a test that's not only been proven to verify, the presence of a virus, any particular virus, and that itself has not been properly isolated and proven to cause any disease in any laboratory anywhere in the world so far. So are they referring to a test which is not only unproven, and the test itself is not FDA approved, which is only being used under an emergency order for temporary use, which should have expired sometime in end of March or 1st of April. A test which even the CDC admits offers false positives at up to 80%, and a test which in the state of Florida was shown to be falsified, with some dozen labs reporting test results in the 100% range, with individuals testing positive who didn't even take the test. That test If you're traveling from Florida, there is slight possibility of being able to meet this criteria, as most, and up to 100% in some cases. There were over a dozen labs that falsified records, or were, with extreme false positives. You're not going to be able to meet this, as most people who test positive regardless. That's my first issue. So number two, going to be required to show a negative molecular or PCR test that has been taken in the past 72 hours. In the last 72 hours. In addition, they will have to provide information about their travel history and itinerary. Those who don't have proof that they're COVID-free will be required to shelter for 14 days or until they're tested. Now, it doesn't say, and I would have to do more research. Maybe you can answer the question in the comments here. If you test positive at the airport on arrival, from this forced invasive medical procedure, PCR test that they're going to force you to take at the airport, are they going to quarantine you for 14 days at the airport? Where are they going to quarantine you? Where are they going to hold you? Are they going to ship you to some 3 or 4-star resort where you have to quarantine at your own dime, on your own dollar, at your own expense, as maybe a way of backdoor bolstering some nepotistic friend's hotel chain income and so on? Is that what it's going to be? Maybe you could clear that up for me and answer me. If you get busted with a positive test at the airport in San Juan or in Puerto Rico, in Ponce, etc., where are they going to force you to quarantine 14 days or until they're tested? Those who don't have proof, it says. So not even a positive test, but you just simply don't have proof because you haven't taken a test or don't want to be tested, or until they're tested. So what if you're quarantined in Puerto Rico on arrival because you don't have proof, and after 14 days you still refuse to take a test? Are you then indefinitely quarantined, incarcerated? Are you indefinitely jailed, perhaps at your own expense? They don't really specify. It's not really clear. So if you could answer that for me, I sure would like to hear that. So not enough to verify a negative report in the past 72 hours, but in addition, a personal history and itinerary. Can you say, papers? Where are you going? What are you doing there? Who will you be seeing? No papers. No paper, no proper papers, and you're to be locked up, incarcerated, and for no good reason, medically or scientifically, or until you comply with an experimental invasive medical experiment, i.e. an intrusive medical procedure, the test, which has not been scientifically verified to show the presence of any particular virus, much less the big C. My third issue with this is to enforce the rules. To enforce the rules, let's go back to that. To enforce the rules, the government is hiring 350 quarantine police. While it's not feasible to check in on every passenger who arrives on the island, officials plan to use the Sara Alert platform with their quarantine police to monitor travelers and perform random spot checks. Those caught violating the rules face fines of as much as $5,000. To enforce the rules, the government is hiring 350 quarantine police. Did you catch that? Well, it's not feasible to check. Well, of course. They plan to use the Sara Alert. So because it's somehow not feasible for the government to investigate, because that's what they're doing, right? Every person arriving on the island, wait for it, they will turn this unlawful activity of trying to visit a U.S. citizen trying to visit a U.S. territory over to the Sara Alert platform, Notice it clearly states that not only will Sara report violations to the quarantine police, but once on the island or U.S. territory, it will monitor and perform random spot checks. What does monitor mean? This monitoring oversight of your activities must be pretty invasive and inclusive, as it will facilitate random spot checks. That's what it says, random spot checks. What does random spot check mean? In the U.S. and Puerto Rico, well, Puerto Rico is under U.S. federal law. Are not authorities required to present warrants and probable cause to surveil U.S. citizens? Isn't there even a federal court which oversees these warrants and their use, issued and their use and their issuance, called FISA court? Isn't monitor another word for surveillance? I like words. Let's go see what Wiki says about and Webster, and see what they say about using this term monitor. All right, Wiki defines the word surveillance and or to surveil as the monitoring of behavior, activities, or information for the purpose of information gathering, influencing, managing, or directing. One definition of to manage, for example, is to dominate or influence a person by tact, flattery, or artifice. Which of these do you think this is? As in, he manages the child with exemplary skill, as in he manages the citizen trying to carry on a free and happy life in such a way and with such skill that they go along with what they're being asked to do without ever having actually given the opportunity to have informed consent. Is that what they mean? Furthermore, it goes on to say surveillance is used by governments for intelligence gathering, prevention of crime, the protection of a process, person, group, or object, or the investigation of a crime. It is also used by criminal organizations to plan and commit crimes, and by businesses to gather intelligence on their competitors, suppliers, or customers. Which of these does the term monitor and spot check with a third-party surveillance app ring true with you as far as definition wise? Consider the stated intent as listed in the notice is to follow you closely enough to detect some form of violation and to fine you, and or to find you, to see what you're up to in consideration of some criminal enterprise or activity. It would seem to meet the criteria of surveillance and the need legally to require a warrant. In this context, and also according to the dictionary, monitor is synonymous with surveillance. Okay? It would seem to meet the criteria of surveillance and the need legally to require a warrant. I'm guessing the Puerto Rican government is not issuing search warrants for all incoming travelers and or tourists. You think? Probably not. So this is clearly a form of wireless surveillance. And they're telling you right up front, even if you pass this airport intrusive scrutiny, interrogation, papers, test, who are your associates? What is your agenda on the island? You know, as a U.S. citizen, I can go to Puerto Rico without an agenda. I don't have to actually have one. I could go to do business. I could go to visit friends. I could go to visit family. I could go to the beach. I could go to wander around the Taino country and try some indigenous coffee and make some new friends in Loras, and go to that, beautiful little coffee shop breakfast place right off the square in downtown Loras, and get a really good traditional Puerto Rican breakfast with a local coffee. I mean, I could be doing all those things, right? I could do all those things. And I don't have to have anybody's permission or authorization to do that. Puerto Rico is a U.S. territory. I'm a U.S. citizen. Is this what they're doing? I wonder. Of course, the rationale or justification, right, is that because Puerto Rico is a desirable destination, according to Governor Vasquez, but we want to make it safe for those who are visiting and those who live here. This is how they're going to make it safe. One further note on the misuse of surveillance is surveillance can be used by governments to unjustifiably violate people's privacy and is often criticized by civil liberties activists and whistleblowers, Snowden. There have been incidences of the government doing warrantless surveillance on, every phone, every cell phone in the country, for example. Been whistleblowers who have released that information. It's been quite embarrassing. And it's still going on. We just want to make it safe for visitors. Well, that perfectly justifies the overreach, don't you think? Please let me know your thoughts on this in the comments below. Please. I'd love to hear it. The effective result of these shocking restrictions on the free right to travel is isolation. What about the many Puerto Rico people who are traveling not for tourism, but to see, share, and support their families and loved ones? They're being prohibited from being in their communities and families, regardless of whether they're sick or not. More than this, the ambush at the airport, that's what I'm going to call it, the ambush at the airport, tactics being employed are barefaced, intrusive manipulation to coerce compliance without consent. Here, you've gone through all the hassle, whatever it takes to get through the security at the airport, to finally fight your way onto a JetBlue flight, Freudian slip, and they have finally given you permission to take advantage of your seat that you actually paid for to transport you to Puerto Rico. And then when you get there, you are herded into a line and you are ambushed. You have to fill out documents and papers, and you have to show test results, and or you have to take a test, and or you are immediately incarcerated. You don't think that has a chilling effect? Once you've been forced to be tested, or how about this, to load the Sara app on your phone, because they already told you they're going to have to monitor you and you're subject to spot inspections at any time without notice while you're on the island. Is that true for everyone, or is that true just for visitors? So if you're visiting your family, or if you're visiting friends or someone else, just by weight of you being with them, they're now subject to no-knock visitations by supposed police-powered contact tracers. How are they going to like that? Are they going to like that? Let me know in the comments down here. Once you've been forced to be tested, to load that app on your phone, which again, that's intrusive, forcing people to load apps on their personal phone. Actually, the app is already on your phone. It just needs to be activated at this time. Once your app is activated, when does the surveillance cease? No one seems to ask about that. You know, we've got these contact apps. They're already on the Apple and on the Android. They just need a hook, which is another app, to give them permission to start recording your surveilling you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And no one has actually addressed the fact of when does this app-based surveillance cease. It seems to be open-ended. Never. If you agree to it, to install this app or to start the app, are you agreeing to allow a third-party government contractor to surveil you on behalf of various known and unknown government entities indefinitely or forever, or until some unknown and unnamed, unelected DOD, HHS, CDC, and or state tyrant of health person decides that you're no longer a risk and don't need to be surveilled anymore. What do you think are the chances of that? What do you think are the chances that once you're on the tracking app, once you're on the tracking surveillance system officially, that you'll ever be off of it? What do you think? Back to Sara. So down the rabbit hole we go. Okay, it says right there on the page, the Sara Alert platform to monitor travelers, perform random spot checks, which would be notifications to the newly employed contact tracing police. I clicked on the link and it led me to Sara's website. Now here, let me show you the Sara website. Okay, here's the Sara website. And it takes me to the Sara Alert webpage, all about Sara. Please notice upper right, left-hand corner of the page, Mitre, which is the parent corporation operating the nonprofit Sara Alert. Just notice that. We're going to come back to it. Takes me to the webpage, and I'm introduced to Dr. Paul Jarvis, Chief Medical Advisor of Health, Chief Medical Advisor Health of the FFRDC. But first we see an about referring to Sara's parent organization, which is Mitre. And there's a video where, you know, the good doctor, not a medical doctor, the good doctor is talking about Mitre's mission, dedicated to solving problems for a safer world through our public-private partnerships and federally funded R&D centers at the CIA, at Langley, and on various Air Force bases, and in partnership with industry, drug companies, and CDC to tackle challenges to the safety, stability, governments, governors, and well-being of our nation, as defined by who? Okay, and then there's a little more information about Sara, the Sara Alert system, okay, which is to contain a novel outbreak, early identification of new cases is essential. Monitoring exposed individuals to safely refer to care and contain the spread of virus is labor-intensive, and efficient and effective available tools are limited. In response, Mitre, not Sara Alert, but Mitre, a not-for-profit, federally funded CIA, NSA, DOD, etc., Research and Development Center, in partnership with national public health organizations, HHS, CDC, developed Sara, a standards-based open source tool. And public health departments can use Sara to monitor individuals diagnosed with or at risk. But go back to the first notice, they're going to monitor everybody. So if you have COVID, well, then they're monitoring you. And if you're at risk, which means either had COVID, recovered from it fully, or don't know if you've had it and are symptom-free, that means you're at risk for COVID. So that's 100% of the population. So let's go back and read this again. Public health departments can monitor 100% of the population, whether they're sick or not, whether they're at risk or not, enabling real-time insights and increased reporting capability. Now, the question that I have when I read this, okay, when I read this, public health departments to monitor individuals diagnosed with or at risk. Now remember, monitor is the same word as surveil. It's just a kinder, gentler way to say surveil you or warrantless surveillance. Doesn't that sound better? We're just going to monitor you for your own safety, as opposed to we're going to intrude in your privacy with warrantless surveillance because we anticipate that you will commit a criminal act, Minority Report, and we want to be able to stay on top of that. And that they're doing it in real-time insights and increased reporting capability. The tool allows individuals to report daily symptoms through web, text, email, and phone calls, providing public health departments real-time insights. And remember, also in cooperation with uniformed contact police. Sara serves as a force multiplier. Force multiplier. Who uses terms like force multiplier? Isn't that a military term? I'm pretty sure that it is a military term that supports governmental public health response to emerging disease threats that may include active monitoring and home isolation for disease containment or mitigation. And it allows the public health resources to be directed where they are most needed. It's free and to state and local health departments and serves as an enduring resource easily configured for the next disease. And of course, we've already been told there's another pandemic on the way. It's being developed right now. We've already been told that by the people who brought you the first one. And I can't mention their names or my video will get banned. As an open source tool, Sara Alert is available for public and private use and is easily integrated into other surveillance tools. So, to contain an outbreak of a disease not scientifically proven to exist, and to identify cases which are false positives based on a faulty test, and then to continue with monitoring, i.e. surveillance or warrantless surveillance, the system allows, actually there's no allow, there's mandatory compliance of surveillance based on an intrusive experimental and unproven test. PCR test is a precondition to being allowed to conduct your life as a free person. Do you get the oxymoronic logic here that you have to comply with coercive experimental medical procedures, warrantless surveillance, in order to be allowed to continue with your life as a free person? By the way, this whole process is at the least stressful. It's stressful. Stressful reduces the efficacy of your immune system. We know that for a fact. And just these kinds of processes and making people jump through these kinds of hoops is eminently stressful. Leads to all kinds of harm, both disease and self-harm from depression and suicide. That's a fact. It meets all the textbook definitions of torture. I'm just saying, check out Amazing Polly's video on torture if you want to have a more exhaustive discussion on what is torture and how torture is legally defined in international treaty. Sara allows health resources, aka police, or enforcement contact tracers, with law enforcement capabilities, probably armed, to, well, you know, who could be more dangerous than a non-compliant asymptomatic? Oh my God. We got to keep a close eye on those non-compliant asymptomatics. Right? Because they're going to wander away from the herd. They're going to wander away from the sheeple. Especially onerous if you are healthy and do not need enforcement or surveillance. I'm perfectly healthy. I do not need monitoring or surveillance. I do not need a test that doesn't work. I do not need to be declared a case based on a false positive from a test that doesn't work. I thought about it for a minute and I did some quick math and I realized that Sara had to have, really pay attention to this. Sara had to have real-time network capability to surveil, collate, sort, categorize hundreds of millions of individuals simultaneously in real time, all mostly without their knowledge and/or consent. They would have to be networked in real time to state and federal as well as territorial governmental entities and databases, and would logically also have to surveil all international cases in real time as well. Would not this monitoring be used for international travelers arriving in Puerto Rico or Florida as well? Maybe those arriving from other Caribbean nations or for other islands? That's again hundreds of millions of people. Many hundreds of millions of simultaneous surveillance occurring every minute. How is this even possible, I ask myself. How's this even possible? On the heels of that question, I then ask, who has this capability? Certainly not an app builder who, as per their website, is giving away the app and access to the reporting for free. The computing power alone would have to be astronomical. The computing power alone would have to be monstrous. The network capacity, the bandwidth of a system like this would have to be astronomical. To really put it into force on a wide basis would require more bandwidth than is currently available on the widest commonly used networks. Why, in fact, we would have to create an entirely new network to do that. What does that remind you of? The expense of operating this system and the hundreds, if not thousands, of employees necessary to implement it would have to cost many millions, if not billions of dollars. Who has this kind of capacity for a mitzvah? Who's got this kind of capacity for a do-gooder deed? We created this app just to be helpful kind of thing. That's, who has billions, hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars and thousands of employees that they could commit to this task like with a snap of the fingers? Snap of the fingers. Who could possibly fund this? Well, let's go deeper into the parent corp, Mitre. Who is Mitre and what do they do? So let's think about Mitre here for a minute. Now we're going to look at Mitre's homepage. Mitre solving problems for a safer world. And what do they mean by that? Wow, they're even involved in education. Oh my God, these are such good people. Solving problems for a good world. And then we go down a little further. AI and machine learning. Oh, so they are really into AI, aerospace and transportation, community and belonging. So, contact tracing is about community, right? It's about tracing your community. Get it? And then they're hiring, because of course this kind of systems take thousands of people to implement, and of course they're super high-tech satellite-based technologies. Do they have their own satellites? Makes me wonder. Mitre. So let's look at Mitre just a little bit more. Wow. They have been around for a long time. Okay, they've been around for a long time. Let's see here. Mitre. On the Mitre Corporation here, it's an American not-for-profit organization based in Bedford, Massachusetts. That's MIT. McLean, Virginia. That's CIA. Federally funded research and development centers. Those are 22 different Air Force bases. Wow, they are really getting around. And they're a really interesting organization. Let's look at who their internal organizations are and who funds them. Wow, really interesting, isn't it? This philanthropic organization providing the Sara Alert app to help us be safe from the big C. They're funded by the DOD, for national security issues, the FAA, to manage air traffic, their IRS, tracking. We need tracking for IRS. Department of Homeland Security to safeguard people in the U.S. against terrorist threats. And since they're monitoring people, most likely that would be people are, terrorists. Could be. And bottom one, my most interesting, National Institute of Standards and Technology, operated by the National Cybersecurity. Wasn't one of those subsidiaries connected to the NSA, and a certain whistleblower who shall remain nameless gave us really insight into warrantless eavesdropping of cell phone data using hidden backdoors and collection techniques that were, even they discussed them in Congress as being highly irregular, which is the polite word for criminally illegal, but we can't put you in jail right now. So I'm going to go back here a little bit. Talk about Mitre. At least they've been around for a long time, at least in current form, for over 50 years. It was founded in 1958 by Mr. Hap Halligan. This Hap Halligan, who's a former technology researcher. There's not a lot publicly about this guy, who founded a multi-billion-dollar corporation, one of the largest independent private contractor organizations, hired by the U.S. government, and multi-billion-dollar deal that they have with the U.S. government. I found a statement under the leadership of Hap Halligan. Mitre was formed in 1958 to provide overall direction to the companies and workers involved in the U.S. Air Force SAGE project. We're going to look at SAGE in a second. Furthermore, it states the name Mitre stands for MIT Research Establishment. MIT Research Establishment, and that Mitre on the wiki page says doesn't have any other meaning. I don't know. First thing I thought of when I heard the word Mitre and secret government contractors and secret government working for secret government or secretive government agencies was the symbol for the Masons, which is a mitre with the letter G. My father was a 33rd degree Mason and Shriner, and I'm very familiar with that symbolism. And the mitre is their most important symbol. We now associate some of these symbols with the global cabal of the New World Order as they measure through technocracy everything that there is of value in the planet so that they can control it. And here's a system that will be accumulating real-time surveillance of hundreds of millions of people, which is run by a Department of Defense and also a strategic organization. Oh, let's go back. Let's go back. National Cybersecurity. We can trust them, right? And it's an MIT think tank. So you notice in the Mitre page, it talked about artificial intelligence. So all these things are MIT engineering specialties. So MIT is one of the largest Department of Defense private contractor organizations. MIT would not be able to exist today if not for the funding from these secret agencies, or if not secret, because we can see their name here, let's call them secretive. All their work is secret. And on another page, I list these. So here they are right there in front of you. Nice to see. Okay. And the ones that, at least in my eye, are the DOD, IRS, DHS, and of course, National Cyber Security and Homeland Security, right? They obviously have a long track record in medicine, right? Public health, right? Medical testing, vaccines, right? I think it's not their expertise. Me thinks their expertise is in military defense network strategies and surveillance, military surveillance. And this project of theirs, Sara, is doing exactly that, but being presented in such a way as to be innocuous monitoring to make you safer. Can you say snow job, Snowden? Can you say snow job? Are these not U.S.-based intelligence services surveilling Americans on U.S. soil who have not been accused of any crime? I'm going to again say FISA court, isn't that illegal? Interesting. Correct me if I'm wrong. If it's legal for U.S.-based intelligence sources to surveil U.S. citizens who are not implicated or accused of any crime 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, then please let me know in the comments. I'd really like to see the reference. Here's one thing I ran across. You're going to love this. Maybe not. Maybe it'll upset you. I just shook my head when I learned this. One of Mitre's most notable and famous projects was to nuke or blow up the moon. Yes, that's right. They are the people who proposed seriously to blow up the moon with nuclear bombs. That's right, that's them. This is Project Sage. Project Sage, Mitre, Sara, contact tracing app, all fruit from the same tree. SAGE is an acronym for Semi-Automatic Ground Environment Air Defense System. Let's look at SAGE. Okay, so we're going to bug up to the top here. I mean, this page is quite long. You'll have a lot of fun going through this page. Now, these are all publicly available resources. I'm not revealing any secret things. And again, MIT was involved right here. Lincoln Laboratory, Massachusetts Institute of Technology. Let's ask questions. Lincoln Laboratory. Who is Lincoln Laboratory? What are they up to? Semi-automatic ground environment was the nation's first air defense, but they're still big time. Still big time. Shaping the culture and as it exists today, okay? And so it was part of the Cold War, anti-Soviet development, technology, propaganda. And so I'm just going to let you read through that yourself. But you're going to look at Project Sage. And actually, let's go to the History Channel. And there, we're going to see a page, Why the Air Force Almost Blasted the Moon with an H-Bomb. Yeah, you cannot make this up. Detonating a thermonuclear weapon on the moon. Sounds like a Dr. Strangelove theme, right? Doesn't it? It's the MIT Lincoln Laboratory originally set up by George E. Valley Jr. during the Cold War. After the Russians were first in space with Sputnik, we were apoplectic. We could not hold our water. We were just incensed that the Russians did anything better than us or before us, as it didn't fit the narrative. And so our first solution to that was not to compete in the fair marketplace of technology development, but was to blow up the moon. Really? Look it up. Thank God that once this project, led by former NASA scientist, mercenary contractor, Dr. Carl Sagan, that's right, billions and billions, Dr. Carl Sagan, author of Contact, is saying, and using missiles designed by Nazi scientist, Dr. Wernher von Braun, multi-stage intercontinental ballistic missiles with the capability of traversing Earth to Moon. Those ICBMs and Minuteman boosters and all that were developed by Nazi scientist Dr. Wernher von Braun. That's all public record. Operation Paperclip. Someone apparently asked the questions of What about if we go to the moon? Or what about fallout? What about if after you blow up the moon, we might want to go there? What if we need to go there? And also, what happens to all that radioactive debris, which will be based on the moon's atmosphere in circulation around the moon forever? Forever. However, they didn't do it. That's just so good to hear. But it was a real thing. However, they are a multi-billion-dollar contractor today, based on their history of involvement in research in military microwave technology. That's a big one. That's all through their website. My guess is that they are fundamental to development and deployment of mil-spec wireless microwave technology, which I cannot mention here or this video will be banned. You know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about. There might be a letter G in the name. Now, we can trust them, right? Military intelligence coupled with civilian, multi-billion-dollar private, secret contractors specializing in surveillance globally, and now doing so through third party. Sara can be trusted to do what they say, right? We can trust in the privacy of our personal surveillance records, which were illegally collected under warrantless wiretapping, also known as contact tracing, not being used illegally by just dozens of different agencies, right? I mean, they're in their business. They sell this information. Who will they not sell it to? What constrictions are there on them distributing this information, which they have collected, to just pretty much anybody who asks for it? What is there? I'm just asking the question, right? They share information with at least 5 or 6 agencies that we saw listed. What others? We already know they're going to share information with the government of Puerto Rico and the other states that are adopting this contact tracing app, the other health agencies, HHS, CDC, NIH, etc., Indian Healthcare Association. So this is the beast behind contact tracing and contact tracing apps and technology. I ask the question. Again, who is tracking the contact tracers? Who is holding this apparently multi-billion-dollar defense contractors accountable? Why are they receiving more money, more funding, than the billions being funneled into the rush to vaccine industry, the drug industry? I mean, just think about it for a second. I don't believe in the vaccines, right? Vaccine initiatives, because they're bogus, based on bogus science, as many scientists agree. But whether you believe in that or not, a couple of $1 billion have been floated toward the drug companies for rushing vaccines to market. And yet this company, which doesn't do anything health-wise, has actually received more money from the government than the drug companies. I mean, doesn't that make it more of a priority? It's saying that surveillance is more of a priority than the vaccinations. And we think the vaccinations are the end goal in this firmly establishing technocratic New World Order eaters and New World government. Why are they receiving more money? I don't support the vaccine either, but why is the government giving more funding to these DOD, CIA, NSA, Homeland Security contractors for contact tracing than for actual cures? But that's just me. I'm curious. Have a look for yourself. Maybe there's nothing here. You know, I could have just, like, you know, in my too open-mindedness, have jumped on something that's not real, or that is not as substantial as I seem to think it is. But maybe there is a new twist on the story here. I think inquiring minds want to know. I want to know, because I know, at least for the time being, I can't travel to Puerto Rico. I'm not taking a test, a fake test that generates false positives, that generates cases for a narrative that lies about the fact that almost no one is actually dying of the big C. Well, guys, my lady friends, my man friends with mental capacity and who care about what's going on, that's it. That's all I have for today. Remember, there's only one true healer, and it's not the government. It's not private contractors or drug companies. Healing power is yours and comes from God and from spirit. Now, I don't care how you define God, however you define God, but however you define God and the source of all light and life and vitality and prana and the breath, the elan vital of the expression of life, it's not the government. However you define that, healing power is yours and the spirit within, not from any man or man-made organization. If you find my videos of this and other health-related issues and concerns, healing protocols, indigenous and traditional medicine solutions and remedies and practices and techniques interesting, please subscribe, like and share, especially share. Let me know what you discover. If you think I'm way off base, give me a correction. Truth is not afraid of correction. Truth tellers are not afraid of correction. If I've missed the base and I am completely off base, then please let me know, and I will make that correction in a future video. Love to hear that as well. So maybe I'm just being sensitive. Now, before we go, new programs in natural medicine brought to you by the Thai Yoga Center, the SomaVeda College of Natural Medicine, the Learn Thai Yoga online course portal, and we are a seminary of the Native American Indigenous Church tribal organization and are proud to be bringing you health and healing ideas from a natural medicine perspective. God bless and have a beautiful, beautiful day.
Everybody living beyond their means. Brotherly love from the messed up genes. Nobody wants to intervene. The billboard screams you're advertising. Beautiful creatures left to live free under the wheels of your massive RV. All of these things I've come to accept, the quick and the slow.